9 experienced hikers walk into the frozen wilderness of the Ural Mountains. None of them walk out alive. What they found at the scene was absolutely bonkers: a tent slashed open from the inside, bodies scattered across the snow with injuries so severe they looked like car crash victims, and one hiker missing her tongue and eyes. No footprints from anyone else. No signs of a struggle. For over 60 years, this mystery has stumped investigators, spawned wild theories, and honestly, the truth might be even crazier than the conspiracy theories. Stick around, because what happened on that mountain will blow your mind. Alright, so let's rewind to January 1959. The Soviet Union is in full swing, the Cold War is getting intense, and a group of 9 college students decides, hey, you know what sounds fun? A hardcore winter expedition in the middle of nowhere. These weren't just random kids, though. These were experienced hikers, led by a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. The whole crew was legit, tough, prepared, and they'd done trips like this before. We're talking about people who knew how to handle themselves in brutal conditions. Their plan? Trek through the northern Ural Mountains to reach a mountain called Autopsy. The route was classified as Category 3, which basically means super difficult but definitely doable if you know what you're doing. And they did. They set out on January 27th, all pumped up and ready to conquer the mountain. But here's where things get eerie. One member, Yuri Yudin, had to turn back early because he got sick. That decision saved his life. He was the only survivor, not because he made it through what happened next, but because he never made it to the mountain at all. The rest of the group? They kept pushing forward into the wilderness. And on February 1st, they made camp on the slopes of a mountain called Kolet Syakhl. In the local Monsey language, that name translates to Dead Mountain. Yeah, Dead Mountain. That should have been a red flag the size of Texas. So here's the thing, these hikers were supposed to send a telegram when they got back to civilization around February 12th. When that deadline came and went with 0 word from them, people started getting worried. But nobody freaked out immediately because delays happened all the time in the Soviet wilderness. But when days turned into weeks, that's when the search parties rolled out. On February 26th, searchers finally found their camp. And what they saw was absolutely insane. The tent was still there, half buried in snow, but get this, it had been cut open from the inside. Not torn by wind, not ripped by an animal. Slashed by the people inside. Like they were so desperate to get out that they couldn't even bother with the entrance. All their gear was still inside. Boots, warm clothes, supplies, everything you'd need to survive in sub-zero temperatures. These people literally fled into -30-degree weather in their socks and underwear. The first bodies were found near the tree line, about a mile from the tent. 2 of them, Yuri Krivonischenko and Yuri Doroshenko, were found shoeless, dressed in basically nothing, lying under a massive cedar tree. They'd clearly tried to start a fire. But here's what's wild, the tree had broken branches up to 15 feet high, like someone had been climbing it, trying to see something in the distance. What were they looking at? What were they running from? Over the next few months, searchers found the other 7 bodies scattered across the mountain. And this is where things go from mysterious to downright terrifying. The injuries these hikers had were no joke. We're not talking about frostbite or hypothermia here, though yeah, some of them definitely froze to death. But others? Their injuries were catastrophic. One hiker, Ludmila Dubinina, was found with massive chest trauma, like her ribs had been crushed. Another, Alexander Zolotaryov, had similar injuries. The medical examiner said the force required to cause this kind of damage was like getting hit by a car. But there were no external wounds. No bruises. No signs of a fight. How do you get internal injuries that severe without a single scratch on the outside? And then there's Ludmila's body specifically. She was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips. Some of her facial tissue was just gone. Now, before you go full X-Files on me, the official explanation for the missing soft tissue is that she probably fell face down in a stream and scavengers got to her. That's plausible. Animals go for soft tissue first. But combined with everything else, it just adds to the nightmare fuel. Other hikers had weird injuries too. One had a fractured skull. Another had brain damage. And the freakiest detail? Some of their clothes tested positive for radiation. Not crazy high levels, but enough to make you go, wait, what? The Soviet investigation wrapped up in May 1959, and their conclusion was basically, they died from an unknown compelling force. That's it. That's the official answer. A compelling force. Thanks for nothing, comrades. The case was closed, the files were locked away, and the whole thing became this shadowy legend that people whispered about for decades. Alright, so over the years, people have come up with every theory under the sun to explain what happened on Dead Mountain. Let's run through some of the wildest ones. Theory 1, Avalanche. This is actually the most recent, official explanation from Russian investigators in 2019. They ran computer models and said a small avalanche could have hit the tent in the middle of the night, causing the injuries and forcing them to cut their way out and run. But here's the problem, experienced searchers at the time said there was no evidence of an avalanche. The tent was still standing. The slope wasn't steep enough. And why would they run a mile away instead of just digging themselves out? Theory 2, military testing. Some people think the Soviet military was testing weapons in the area, maybe missiles or some kind of experimental tech. That would explain the radiation and the massive internal injuries. Plus, the government definitely wasn't being transparent about what happened. But if it was a military accident, why not just cover it up completely? Why investigate at all? Theory 3, infrasound. This one's pretty wild. Some scientists think that wind passing over the mountain could have created infrasound, low-frequency sound waves that humans can't hear but that mess with your brain. Infrasound can cause panic, dread, hallucinations, and even physical pain. Imagine being in a tent, suddenly feeling this overwhelming terror you can't explain, thinking something's attacking you. You panic, you slash your way out, you run into the freezing night. It actually kinda fits. Theory 4, paradoxical undressing. Here's something that actually happens with hypothermia victims. In the final stages, your body gets so confused that you feel burning hot instead of cold, so you start ripping your clothes off. It's called paradoxical undressing, and it's documented in tons of hypothermia cases. That could explain why they were half naked, but it doesn't explain the tent being cut open, the injuries, or why they left in the first place. So what really happened on Dead Mountain? Honestly, after all these years, we still don't know for sure, and that's what makes this case so haunting. The most likely explanation is probably a combination of things. Maybe a small avalanche or snow slab spooked them in the middle of the night. They panicked, cut their way out, and ran down the mountain. In the chaos and darkness, some of them got injured falling down steep slopes or into ravines. Hypothermia set in fast. Some tried to help others, which explains why some bodies were wearing clothes that belonged to their friends. It's tragic, it's devastating, but it's also almost mundane compared to all the wild theories. But here's what gets me: the Soviet government's secrecy, the weird injuries, the radiation traces, and the fact that locals reported seeing strange orange lights in the sky that night. These little details keep the mystery alive. Maybe we'll never know exactly what happened on February 1st, 1959. Maybe some mysteries are meant to stay unsolved. What we do know is that 9 young people with their whole lives ahead of them went into those mountains and never came back. And whatever they experienced in those final hours was terrifying enough to make them run barefoot into a frozen wasteland. So what do you think happened on Dead Mountain? Was it an avalanche? Military testing? Something even weirder? Drop your theories in the comments below. And hey, if this story creeped you out as much as it did me, smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's darkest mysteries. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay curious, stay safe, and maybe avoid mountains named Dead Mountain. Peace out.